2 years ago, my younger brother Ryan, 28M at the time, vanished overnight. And he didn't just vanish physically, he left behind chaos that nearly destroyed me. We'd been running our late father's auto shop together in northern Michigan since he passed away. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. My brother had always been the golden one. Charismatic, talented, people just loved him. I was the practical one. I handled paperwork, invoices, and the boring stuff that kept the lights on. When Dad died, Ryan showed up at the funeral promising he'd step up. And to his credit, he did for a while. Customers liked him, and business actually started growing. I thought maybe, finally, we were in it together, two brothers rebuilding what our dad started. Then, one morning in late September, I came to the shop and found the office door pried open. The safe was empty. Our joint business account had been drained. The title to my truck was missing. And so was Ryan. At first, I didn't want to believe he'd done it. I called hospitals, police, even mutual friends. Everyone said the same thing. He's gone, man. Don't expect him back. I tried to convince myself it was some misunderstanding, that he'd call and explain everything. Maybe he was in trouble. But a week later, a detective showed me security footage from an ATM. Ryan, smiling, withdrawing our savings, his girlfriend in the passenger seat of my truck. He'd taken everything. The money, the vehicle, the shop's reputation. He even wiped our accounting system. Within a month, I was facing foreclosure and bankruptcy notices I couldn't even open without shaking. When our mother found out, she begged me not to press charges. She said, "He's your brother, Matt. He's family. You don't destroy family." But she wasn't the one getting calls from creditors. She didn't have to face the shame every time a client came by asking why their car parts hadn't arrived. I filed the report anyway. They couldn't find him. The detective told me he probably crossed state lines under a fake name. And after a few months, the case went cold. I sold the shop to cover debts and took a job managing a parts warehouse. My mother hasn't really forgiven me for turning on my brother. But I still tell myself I did the right thing. At least, I used to. Because 2 years later, Ryan showed up at my door last week. He looked gaunt, hollow-eyed, wearing my old jacket. And the first words out of his mouth were, "Matt, I need your help." When I opened the door, Ryan looked smaller than I remembered. Not in height, he's always been taller than me, but somehow diminished, like life had chewed him up and spit him back out. I wanted to slam the door in his face. I wanted to scream, to call the cops. Instead, I just stood there, frozen. He started talking immediately, rambling, trying to explain himself. He said he'd made mistakes, that he didn't know what he was thinking, and that he'd hit rock bottom. He even mentioned being mugged in Chicago, losing what little cash he had left, and sleeping in motels for weeks. And then came the part that froze me. He wanted my help to get back what he had stolen. He wanted me to wire him money to reclaim assets he claimed were still recoverable from some crooked business partners he'd fallen in with after leaving. I remember standing there, my hands trembling. I wanted to ask him, "Do you even hear yourself? Do you know what you did to me?" But I didn't, because I could feel the anger boiling beneath the surface. I could feel all those months of nights awake worrying about bills, all those moments of humiliation when I had to apologize to customers he'd ripped off, all the quiet fear that he could just waltz back into my life and undo everything again. He looked at me with those same brown eyes I'd grown up with, and for a second, just a fraction of a second, I remembered the little brother I used to protect from bullies. "Matt, I need you," he said again, voice cracking. I screwed up, but I want to make this right. I can't do it alone. I know I don't deserve it, but..." I wanted to slam the door then, but I didn't. I wanted to walk away. But something, pride, anger, fear, I'm not sure, kept me rooted. Because there was a choice now, a decision I'd never wanted to make. Do I help him, knowing that in doing so, I might be complicit in whatever mess he's dragged himself into, and risk him hurting me again? Or do I refuse him, cruelly, knowing that leaving him to his failures might destroy him, maybe even irreversibly. The moral dilemma hit me like a punch to the chest. He was my brother, family, blood, and yet he had treated me like a stranger, like someone disposable. I didn't speak for a long time. I let him stare at me, expecting forgiveness, expecting loyalty, expecting that I would hand him what he wanted. I didn't. Instead, I said quietly, almost mechanically, "I can't help you, Ryan. Not now. Not ever, maybe." He froze, the expression on his face shifting from hope to disbelief, then anger, then desperation. "You don't get it. I need this. You owe me." The word owe, I don't think I've ever hated a word more. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell him exactly how much he had taken from me, how much he had destroyed, and how much I had suffered in silence because I couldn't even tell my mother the whole truth without her crying or blaming me for being too harsh. Instead, I just closed the door. The echo of his knocking lingered long after he left, and as I leaned against the door, heart hammering, I realized that this wasn't just about money or even revenge. This was about control, about finally asserting some power over a person who had taken everything from me. And deep down, I wasn't sure whether I wanted closure or to make him feel the weight of what he had done. For the next few days, I couldn't shake him from my mind. Ryan's face, those pleading eyes, kept surfacing in every quiet moment. I found myself replaying every scene from that week he disappeared. The security footage, the empty office, the creditors calling me, the endless hours trying to patch together the mess he'd left behind. I thought I had moved on. I'd rebuilt my life, modestly, quietly, but with stability. Yet suddenly, that sense of control felt fragile. I realized the moment he returned, even if only briefly, had thrown me back to square one, angry, exhausted, morally tangled. I wanted to help him. Part of me did. I thought about what it would mean to pull him out of the hole he had dug for himself, to give him a second chance, the one I had wanted to give him when he first promised to step up after Dad died. Maybe I'd even feel that old brotherly connection again. But another louder part of me screamed that helping him was exactly what he had relied on for years, the safety net I always provided. He had burned it once. Why would I risk it again? How could I trust him not to betray me again, not to vanish and leave me scrambling for the pieces of my life? And then there was something else gnawing at me, the sense of justice. The law couldn't reach him, at least not after 2 years. I could have pressed charges, sued him, tried to claw back what was lost, but I didn't. Because, in a way, I wanted him to feel the consequences more personally, more intimately. Not through a courtroom or a lawyer, through me. Through the understanding that I was done being his safety net. I wrestled with this night after night. I asked myself over and over, am I being cruel? Am I being fair? Am I letting anger dictate my morality? My mother called once, softly, trying to reason with me. "Matt, he's your brother. You can't just abandon him completely." I wanted to scream at her. I wanted to tell her that she had never spent months cleaning up after him, watching him ruin every chance he had, feeling helpless as I bore the fallout. I wanted to say, he isn't innocent, and I don't have to forgive him just because he's family. But I didn't. I just said, carefully, "Mom, I'm not abandoning him. I'm protecting myself. And honestly, I'm protecting him too. Because if I try to bail him out again, I don't think he'll ever learn anything." She didn't like that answer. She never does. My moral compass, according to her, is too cold, too rigid. But the truth is, I can't risk being soft on someone who has proven time and again that they will exploit me. I kept imagining scenarios where he returned, pleading, sobbing, promising to make things right. And in my imagination, I never answered him. I never forgave him. I watched him wrestle with the weight of his actions alone, and I felt something dark stir in me. Relief. Relief because finally, for the first time, he was experiencing consequences without me stepping in to cushion the fall. Relief because I wasn't going to be the one broken again, emotionally and financially, by someone I had trusted with everything. But then the guilt would come, the nagging, impossible guilt. Because even though he had hurt me beyond measure, he was still my brother. Blood. Family. And what kind of man lets blood suffer when he could help? I didn't have an answer. I didn't even know if one existed. I only knew that every choice I made from this point on would define not just my relationship with Ryan, but my sense of who I am, a man of loyalty or a man of self-preservation. And that question, that gnawing moral uncertainty, didn't ease. It only grew louder. A week after his visit, Ryan showed up again. I saw him from across the street before he even knocked. His truck, my old truck, somehow repaired and polished, was parked crookedly in front of my house. My first instinct was to hide, to disappear inside, lock the door, and hope he left. But something compelled me to face him. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was that twisted part of me that wanted him to see just how much control he had lost over me. When I opened the door, he didn't bother with small talk. He came straight to the point. "Matt, I'm not asking anymore. I'm telling. I need your help, or everything we had, everything you wanted for the shop, for us, it's gone. I can fix this, but you have to let me, please." His tone was sharper than before, desperate but commanding. It was an ultimatum, thinly disguised as a plea. I froze. The air between us felt heavier than it should have. I could feel the past 2 years, the sleepless nights, the endless stress, the sense of betrayal, pressing down on me. "Ryan," I said slowly, "I don't owe you anything. You've had your chance. You made your choices. You don't get to come back and dictate mine." He laughed then, bitter, a little manic. "You think this is just about me? It's about all of us. You think I wanted to leave like that? I had no choice. If you don't help, it all collapses. Everything falls apart. You want me to rot? Fine, but don't pretend you're innocent in this." I stared at him, and for a moment, the old brotherly connection threatened to surface. I could see the fear in his eyes, the shame, the confusion. I could see a man broken in every way, and it was terrifying. And then I felt anger, a sharp, piercing rage. "You left me to clean up your mess. I paid your debts, handled your lies, faced your clients, and now you're standing here acting like you're the victim? You're insane." He flinched, like he hadn't expected me to respond with anything other than submission. "Matt, I'm begging you. I can't do it alone. Just this once. I'll make it right." And in that instant, the moral pressure hit me like a truck. Part of me wanted to say yes. Part of me wanted to punch him in the face. Part of me wanted to cry, to scream, to just collapse and let everything, the anger, the fear, the exhaustion, wash over me. I didn't respond immediately. I wanted him to feel that weight, that silence, the same way I had felt it for 2 years when I had no one to turn to. Finally, I said quietly, "I can't, Ryan. Not now. Maybe not ever." He stood there for a long moment, his face pale, jaw tight. Then he left without another word, slamming the truck door in a way that rattled my windows. Later, I found a voicemail from my mother, furious, insisting I was being cruel, that I was letting anger destroy the family, and that I had to forgive and help him before it's too late. My friends called too, some quietly supporting me, others worried I was letting this bitterness consume me. And for the first time, I realized something. No matter what I chose, people would judge me. They'd call me cruel, cold, heartless. But what they didn't see was the daily emotional exhaustion I carried, the constant anxiety, the sleepless nights, the gnawing mistrust he had implanted in me. I sat on the edge of my bed that night, wondering if refusing him was justice or cruelty, and I felt a grim, unavoidable truth. I might never be able to separate the two. Because sometimes protecting yourself from someone who betrayed you feels exactly like being cruel, and sometimes that cruelty might be the only thing keeping you sane. Ryan didn't give up. A few days after the ultimatum, he started texting, emailing, even showing up near my workplace. Every message was a mix of apology and demand, a strange cocktail of guilt and manipulation that made my chest tighten. How does he still have this power over me? I kept asking myself. Some nights I lay awake, heart racing, imagining letting him back in, imagining helping him reclaim the shop, paying off debts, restoring the life he stole. Part of me wanted that. Part of me wanted revenge, to make him feel the helplessness he had left me with. Friends warned me, "He's testing you," one said. "Don't let him back into your life." But even they didn't know how exhausting it was to constantly anticipate his next move, to wonder if one slip would undo all the progress I'd fought for. And then there was Mom. She called again, accusing me of destroying family, of being cold beyond reason. I wanted to tell her everything, the sleepless nights, the calls from creditors, the humiliation, but even that felt useless. She would see me as cruel no matter what. I found myself walking past the empty shop lot, remembering the life we had built together. It was easier to imagine forgiveness there than in my apartment, where every piece of furniture felt like a monument to his betrayal. I didn't answer his last voicemail. I didn't call him back. But I felt him everywhere, in the pounding of my heart, in the shadowed corners of my mind. He had become a presence I couldn't shake, a weight I couldn't discard, and the moral question burned hotter each day. Do I protect myself, or do I try to save the brother I loved before he became a stranger? And maybe the hardest part was knowing that either way, I'd lose something, either my moral high ground or my peace of mind. It happened last Thursday. Ryan showed up at my apartment just after sunset. I had been expecting him, but I wasn't ready. I could hear his knock echoing through the hallway, sharp and insistent, and for a moment, I thought about not answering. But I did. He looked older, thinner, like the last 2 years had stripped something vital from him. There was no charm in his expression now, only raw desperation. "Matt," he said quietly, almost pleading, I can't do this without you. Please." I wanted to shut the door. I wanted to tell him to leave before I did something I'd regret. But instead, I let him in. Only into the living room. I didn't sit, didn't make eye contact. I just waited for him to speak. And he did. He laid it all out. The bad choices, the debts, the scams he'd gotten mixed up in, even the threats from people he'd owed money to. He tried to frame it like we were in this together, like I owed him. I listened, silent, my chest tight. Every instinct told me to grab the phone and call the cops. Every memory of betrayal whispered to let him feel the weight of what he'd done. Finally, I spoke. "You've had 2 years, Ryan. 2 years to fix your mess. 2 years to find yourself. I cleaned up after you. I paid for your choices, and now you want me to help you again?" His eyes watered. He tried to argue, to justify, to guilt me. "I'm your brother, don't you see? Family." I felt a strange mix of rage and sorrow. Family. That word used like a weapon. Was that what it meant? Blood ties demanding loyalty even after betrayal? "You're right," I said slowly. "You're my brother. But you're also a stranger, and I don't owe strangers a thing." He sank into the couch, defeated. For a moment, I almost felt pity, but then I remembered all the nights I'd stayed awake, all the sleepless calls, all the financial and emotional chaos he had left behind. "I can't help you, Ryan," I said. "Not now, not ever. You'll have to face this alone." He looked at me like I had crushed him completely. And maybe I had. I felt the heaviness of it settle in my chest, the moral weight, the lingering doubt, the ache of the connection we once had. When he left, I closed the door and sank against it. I was exhausted, empty, and yet strangely resolute. I had drawn the line. But even in that resolve, I couldn't shake the question gnawing at me. Was I protecting myself, or punishing him for something I'll never fully forgive? Ryan hasn't contacted me since that night. The apartment is quieter, but the weight remains. Mom still calls, frustrated, insisting I was too harsh, that family should forgive. Friends are divided. Some say I did the right thing. Others worry I'm letting anger consume me. I keep replaying the confrontation, wondering if I crossed some invisible moral line. Did I protect myself, or did I punish him? Sometimes I imagine helping him, rebuilding what was lost, and part of me aches with that possibility. But then I remember the betrayal, the sleepless nights, the shame, and the thought disappears.
I don't know if I made the right choice. Maybe there is no right choice. All I know is that the line is drawn, the door closed, and that even in silence, the question lingers. Can you ever truly forgive someone who destroyed your trust completely? Or is some pain meant to stay?
If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.